and welcome back to Cup of Cheer. Today's a little bit of a mixture of Cup of Cheer and KT's Kitchen Corner. So I wanted to share with you today how I make one of my favorite cookies for our family. I call it chocolate crinkle cookies because they kind of have this crinkle effect when they're done. But I actually got the recipe from Betty Crocker, and they are called Quick Mix Chocolate Cookies, gluten-free. I have the picture of the recipe on my phone, actually my iPod. So if you are wanting to reference back in some way how to get this recipe, I would recommend going to Betty Crocker, but I will also include the recipe below the video. Lola, out of the kitchen. Sorry, this is still a dog-owning home, but I do try to keep the dogs out of the food area. So, pardon the interruptions. Anyhow, here are the ingredients that you will need. First of all, we have the gluten-free Devil's Food chocolate cake mix from Betty Crocker. And powdered sugar. This is corn-free powdered sugar. I get the 360 organic from Whole Foods. There's also a few others. If you're dealing with friends, Lola, out with corn issues, be very careful about the powdered sugar that you get. I'm also using a little bit of regular sugar, just cane granulated C&H? Yeah, C&H. Eggs, you'll need 2 of those. Vanilla, a little vegetable oil or canola oil, and I'm also using baking sheets to line my pans. These are pre-cut for cookie sheets, which are a great option if you're doing a lot of cookie baking. It's a lot simpler. They're pre-cut and ready to go. So, are we ready to get started? Because I am. So, to begin with, I'm going to reference my phone's recipe because it's been a couple months since I've made this. So, pardon my glances over to my iPod. First, we're going to start with the wet ingredients. So we can mix those all together and it'll make it for easier mixing and you won't have clumps of egg yolks in your cookies later. So we're going to take 2 eggs. Yes, that's right, 2 eggs. I'm going to move this over to my granite surface, so if I spill egg, it's easier to clean up and it doesn't get in cracks so much. 2 eggs, 1. And, oh, come now. Okay, so I have just put 2 eggs in, and I'm mixing them up right away. I like starting with the eggs first, again, so you don't get the yellow clumpy yolks in the midst of your cookies later on if you didn't get the temperature right, and it just makes it a little bit more even texture and flavor, in my opinion. So we're just going to whip that up really easily. I would also like to note that if you've watched my video once before on peanut butter cookies, that was a much more dry and sticky dough. This is going to be a much more watery dough. Not watery, but it's not going to have as dry and thick of a texture as the peanut butter cookies did. You'll see at the end, or not the end, but closer to the end of this video, the texture that we're looking for. But you can easily stir this with just a spatula and you won't be wearing yourself out. Okay, so we have mixed up the eggs together so that the yolks are broken. And I'm going to set these aside. And I'm going to do a little bit of vanilla. It calls for 1 teaspoon. I tend to use about a little more than a cap. There you go. About a cap and a half or so. I don't know. That's really more of a personal judgment call than anything. If you want to be precise, it called for a teaspoon. Yes, 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Again, setting that aside for now. Do a quick mix just to even out the flavors for later. Okay, so we have 2 eggs and 1 teaspoon, or about 1.5 cups of vanilla. Now we are going to add sugar, 1/4 cup of sugar. This is going to be regular sugar, and it's going to go into the mix. As of yet, so far, we have only done wet ingredients. Okay. Okay. It's our first dry ingredient, but it mixes so well with the wet that it still is a pretty wet mix at the moment. Again, this helps even out the flavor and the texture. And I've covered up my instructions. Set that aside. And now, 1/3 vegetable oil. Now I love this little measuring cup that has a groove along it, and the actual measurements are along the groove. So as you pour, you can see what amount you're at, so you don't have to look at the side while you're pouring. It's a great little tool, especially if you're tall. Bending is a pain. We do have a couple tall family members. Not exactly a midget myself. Okay, so mix this together a little bit. Just a quick mix, nothing important. Set that aside. Yes. Now, on to the cake mix. We're going to use a whole box of Devil's Food Betty Crocker gluten-free. Whoops, that's the back side of it. Betty Crocker gluten-free Devil's Food cake mix. Just going to dump the whole bag in. Now again, this isn't going to be not going to be an extremely dry mix, so you don't have to worry about mixing part of it and then coming back and mixing another part of it. It's pretty easy to mix. So while I'm mixing here, what's one of your favorite cookies? My aunt has a tradition of every year making fudge. And my family has always loved it. Unfortunately, my mom and I are now allergic to it. Have been for a few years now. But it's delicious. And everyone just loves when she makes the fudge. Her son has even asked for it to be sent to him all the way in Spain, because that's where they live. This is one of my favorites. My other favorite to make with my mom that I've been making for years is my mom's recipe for peanut butter cookies. I made a video for that last year. I'll try to put a link below here for it too. So, yeah. Those are my favorites. Is there anything you love to bake with your family? Maybe it brings back memories of baking with maybe your mom or your grandmother back when you were a child. Or maybe you love making them with your children now that maybe you're a parent. Or maybe you just like receiving them. Okay, so we have the mix now. So, it's got a pretty decent texture. It's a little thick, almost like a brownie. I don't know how well this is filming, but I hope it films well. It's almost a brownie texture. As you can see, I didn't need a mixer. I didn't need any special tools. All I used was a spatula. Now you don't want one that's going to break apart. Some of them are made to break so that you can clean in between. But this is a little stiff. As I'm pulling this up, I can see it actually come up with the spatula. This is a little thick, so it could come apart while you are mixing, and I have had that problem once with this dough. Alright, and we're back. So, we have mixed our dough, and we are getting ready to start actually making the cookies. I have lined my cookie sheets, as I mentioned earlier, with pre-cut Reynolds baking sheets for cookie sheets. And I am ready to begin. As you may have noticed, I set the powdered sugar aside and have not used it yet. That is going to be used to make the cookie balls. They will not come out like balls, don't worry. They spread out. Just pour the powdered sugar in a bowl. I'm going to close it back up and place it over here for a moment. You might need a little bit more than you realize. I almost always have to go back and grab some more powdered sugar. So, I recommend using a scooper. You can find these at most baking places. And I use the smaller of the sizes. I don't actually know what size number. This says 100 on the back, if that helps. I don't really know what that implies, but it says 100 on the back. I like it because it helps me form the cookies, but they don't get so big that they spread into one another and bake like one giant unibrow cookie. So how I begin, I'm going to dip my scooper into the powdered sugar so that the sticky dough actually will release from the scooper more easily. I'm going to dip it in, and I'm actually going to dump it into the powdered sugar. Roll it around the powdered sugar until it's good and covered. And then I'm going to put it onto the cookie sheet. Again, dip in powdered sugar, grab, dunk. Repeat a bunch of times. Now don't worry, your scooper will probably get clogged partway through this. Mine almost always does, because while this is not quite the same kind of texture as the peanut butter cookies, not quite as thick, this is definitely very sticky. So it will probably clog your scooper a bit. You may have to go and clean it out partway through it. That's okay, you haven't done anything wrong. It's quite common. Oh. Don't forget to dip it in your powdered sugar. And this is what helps the crinkle effect when you are done. Ow! Oh yes, watch your fingers. You can get pinched, like I just did. Okay, so now we have enough cookies on cookie sheets to go into the oven. And you'll want to have set your preheated oven to about 350 to 360 depending on your oven. For our oven, it runs on the cold side, I guess you could say. So I put mine to 360. They're going to bake anywhere from 8 minutes to, well, if depending on your climate, all the way to 12 minutes. You just want to see that crackling happen on the top, which I'll show you when they're finished. So here we go. Oops, that one goes there. Ta-ta for now. I'll be right back through the magic of YouTube when this is all finished. Okay, so now it's been 8 minutes, so I'm going to check my cookies. Yes. So, as you might be able to see, if we could zoom in here. So as you can see, they've crinkled a bit. This is why I call them chocolate crinkle cookies. Very yummy. And some are a little overbaked on that sheet, but there you go. That is what I call chocolate crinkle cookies. Now when you rolled your cookies, make sure that the powdered sugar got all the way around it, because it'll make it easier to take it off as soon as these are cooled. Plus you get that nice powdered sugar flavor at the bottom of your cookies as well. So, if I missed anything, I will try to catch it when I put the recipe below this video in the link section, so please make sure to check that out if you have any questions. Feel free to try to contact me either on YouTube, or if you are friends with me on Facebook, contact me that way as well. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that maybe you have fun making this by yourself or with some kids. Nice and messy for kids to enjoy. Maybe not for mom and dad to clean up, but I hope you enjoy your Christmas as much as we are enjoying ours. From me and mine to you and yours, have a very Merry Christmas and a cup of good cheer.
We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Tidings we bring to you and your kin, good tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings for Christmas and a cup of good cheer.